From Samasthiti, we're going to inhale, step back to Padmottanasana or pyramid. So your heels are going to be in line. Your back foot's at a 45-degree angle. Hips are square to the back of the mat. So you'll inhale, lengthen the spine. So option 1 is to keep hands on hips. Option 2 is to hold the elbows. And if reverse prayer is available, then that's the third option.
I'm working on this, so I'll just do it. Just to do my cycles.
Perfect. So inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Again, only hinge so far as you feel like your spine is about to round. And what you're looking for here is the hips are square, so the sacrum is nice and flat here. The spine is straight from the tailbone all the way to the crown. And there's no rounding in the spine. So if Carolina was a little bit rounded, all I would do for an adjustment for this pose is gently come behind her and lift her shoulders a little bit and maybe do something like this to remind her to lengthen the spine, lengthen the neck, and maybe, like I did at the beginning, just a little bit of guidance of where her hips should be. So keeping the hands as they are, inhale, rise up, and pivot to the front of the mat. Now again, square the hips forward. The tendency is going to be for the front hip to travel forward. Go ahead and exhale, hinge. So again, I'll just sort of help her square her hips and make sure that her spine is nice and straight. Make sure also that the knees are not locked out, that there is a micro bend, and of course always the Padabandha in the feet. Inhale, rise, and exhale, Samasthiti. So from the exhale, Samasthiti, we'll move into the balancing postures now. So you'll inhale, jump to feet, hips width apart, or step to feet, hips width apart. And you can come and face the, yeah.
Do you want me to face the camera?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, Ardha Padmottanasana. So the modification for this pose is, of course, tree pose. And so whenever I'm cueing a balancing posture, I like to first, obviously, cue the feet. So lift and spread the toes. Make sure the ball and the heel of the foot are pressing evenly into the mat. Be sure the feet are parallel, and just like we did in mountain pose or Samasthiti, you want to check the alignment, check the plumb line from the center of the ankle, knee, hip, shoulders, and that they're lifting through the crown of the head. So to cue tree pose or any balancing, I would say inhale, raise the arms out to the side. Shift the weight into the left foot, so we'll always start with the right. And for tree, you can kickstand the foot, or if you're coming all the way into it, you can come all the way up above the knee, of course. So if half lotus is in your practice, you can go into half lotus. Otherwise, you'll just remain in tree pose. And so you can bring the hands to heart center or up above the head, and then they'll hold for 5 breaths here. So what you want to check in tree pose is that the hips are aligned. The tendency will be for the foot that's raised, for that hip to start lifting up. So you want to make sure that they're pressing firmly into the standing leg. Of course, any tendencies that you see, navel in, tailbone down, and release. So we'll look at the Ardha Padmottanasana on the left foot. So if you're doing a Mysore practice and your students are coming into this on their own, if they're more advanced, then they may not need to do the arms out and the shifting the weight. They'll know just to go how to go into the Ardha Padmottanasana. So go ahead and go into your half lotus here. So once they're in half lotus, you'll reach for the bind. And if the bind isn't quite available, then you can just hold on to the inside of this arm. And your student can remain here, or if they feel comfortable, they can start to hinge forward. Nice. Bringing the right hand down And again, you're just checking that the hips are aligned here. So the tendency again is going to be for this knee that's raised, that hip to start coming off center here. And so she'll hold for 5 breaths. I won't do any adjustments here other than just say something like, lower this hip. I might just gently touch to let her know which hip she needs to lower or raise. Sometimes there's overcorrection. So to get out of Ardha Padmottanasana, you'll inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, right hand comes to the hip. And inhale, rise all the way up. Great. And then release back to Samasthiti. Perfect. Very nice. Okay. All right, so hand to big toe pose, Utkatasana, Padangusthasana. So again, remember we always start with the right foot. I'm going to show the modification first. So inhale, raise the arms to the side. One thing I forgot to mention with tree is always have a drishti. So any of your balancing postures, you'll want to pick a point in front of you, something that's not moving, at least a max length away if you're looking on the floor. So inhale, raise arms to the side for balance. Shift the weight into the left foot. And first just raise the right knee. Take the front hand to the front of the right shin. Yeah, to start there, exactly. And so here, what you'll be looking at is you want to make sure that the shoulder's not coming forward, shoulders are relaxed. If this is easy and comfortable, the left hand can come to the hip. And so you'll have them hold here, relax your foot, for 5 breaths. And then they'll open to the side, an option to shift the gaze left for 5 breaths. Then you'll inhale back to center. Release the hand to the hip, straighten out the right leg, and hold for 5 breaths. So here, make sure that this hip doesn't raise, and keep that foot as high as possible, engaging the abdominals. Exhale, release. Okay. So on the other side, I'm going to demonstrate while Carolina does the modification that she has. Okay? So again, feet are hips width apart. Hands are on the hips, and you're going to shift the weight into the right foot, raising the left knee, option to take the front of the shin, option to put a strap around the ball of the foot. Or if it's available, you can take hold of the big toe and raise the leg. Now, this takes quite a bit of hamstring flexibility, so the tendency will be, notice that my shoulders are aligned with each other. The tendency will be to do something like this. And so the student has to have enough hamstring flexibility to raise that foot and bring that shoulder into alignment. So 5 breaths here. Open to the side, shift the gaze. The tendency here is for this hip that's raised to keep on raising. So you want to be sure to keep the hip down and the leg rotated outward. So you're looking for this, not this. Okay? And the gaze can shift. 5 breaths here. Inhale, come back to center. And so if the leg is raised, exhale, bring the forehead to the shin. Inhale, rise, straighten out the leg, point the toe, and then hold here for the 5 breaths, and then release. Great. Back to Samasthiti. So go ahead to the front of your mat. So just to understand the sequencing here, you would move through basically a sun salutation A. So you would inhale, rise arms overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale for your vinyasa. Inhale, upward. Exhale, downward dog. So you don't hold this one for 5 breaths. You go ahead and inhale, hop the feet forward, and rise all the way to chair pose. Okay, so we talked about chair pose already, but this is the time where you hold it for your 5 breaths. And exhale, one more vinyasa. And this time from downward facing dog, we're gonna bring the right foot forward and come up for warrior one. That's okay. So we talked about warrior one already, but just to recap. So you want your heels in line with each other. It's more advanced to have your heel aligned with your back arch of your foot. So you need more open hips to get there. So heel to heel alignment is good. If the hips are pretty tight, then you can widen the feet away from each other. So closer to the long edge of the mat, and then bring the feet closer to each other to get the hips pointing forward. Navel in, tailbone down. So you hold here for 5 breaths. Then you inhale, rise up, and pivot to the left. And then hold here for 5 breaths. Exhale, you'll open to warrior two. And so for warrior two, again, heel to heel alignment is going to be a little bit more advanced in this one, whereas heel to arch alignment will allow for a little bit tighter hips. So in warrior two, we want to make sure that the front knee is directly over the ankle, not coming forward. And the feet are at 90-degree angles to each other. There's a play between keeping this knee over the ankle and opening this hip. And so you'll sort of feel this balance of opening that knee, opening that hip. And you want to find the sweet spot where you can feel the sensation in both of your hips. Okay, navel in, tailbone relaxed. So you want to make sure that your side bodies are coming straight up from the hips here. Shoulders are relaxed, and the arms are reaching towards the side, gaze over the front middle finger. So after 5 breaths, inhale, rise, and pivot to the right. And then same thing here, you'll hold for 5 breaths. So there's a tendency here sometimes for students to reach forward, and you'll just notice that the side body now is not stacked over the hips, and so you may just do something like this to get them back into alignment. From here, you'll exhale, cartwheel the hands down to the mat. There's a little arm balance you can do here, but you don't have to. Step back and come into your vinyasa. And now it's time for seated. So you'll hop the feet between the hands and sit down for Dandasana. Okay, so in Dandasana, no, it's okay. So in Dandasana, your feet are flexed, your thighs are engaged, but your knees are not locked out. You don't want the heels to raise up off the mat. That's a sign that the knees are locked out. So for Dandasana, you'll tuck the chin down towards the chest. And what we're focusing on with these 5 breaths is using the Mula Bandha, the Uddiyana Bandha, as well as the slight chin tuck Jalandhara Bandha. And you're practicing these bandhas for 5 breaths. So if your student has rounding in the spine, then they can sit on a block. And so you want the block to go lengthwise so that both of their sit bones can rest on the block, and they can have this very nice straight spine while they're seated.